to order. And let me turn the floor over to Saul.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody. Okay, so this meeting is being held pursuant to Executive Order 16 as amended by Executive Order 65, allowing for virtual meetings of local government bodies during this emergency. The meeting, the public has been invited to attend, and the meeting is being recorded and will be available on YouTube in the very, very near future for our viewing public. In order to hold this meeting, we will have to have a motion, a second, and a vote on whether or not the meeting is necessary for essential committee business, and all votes will be taken by roll call. So we have a joint committee meeting of Finance and Audit and Development. So first we will take them one at a time. So for Finance and Audit, I guess we're asking for a motion to conduct the meeting virtually, to conduct the essential business of the committee.
So moved.
And is there a second?
Second.
The members are, okay, that counts. Very good. Okay, there's a motion, a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we will call the roll. Chair Thaden?
Yes.
Commissioner Purcell?
Yes.
Commissioner Ansari?
Yes.
Commissioner Batts is not here, and Commissioner Campbell?
Yes.
All right, passes. Moving to the Development Committee, Commissioner Ansari, you are chair. We're looking for a motion to conduct this meeting virtually to conduct essential business of the Development Committee.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, very good. So we will call the roll. Chair Ansari.
Yes.
Commissioner Purcell.
Yes.
Commissioner Coleman.
Yes.
Commissioner Campbell.
Yes.
And Commissioner Thaden.
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes for both committees. So Chair Thaden, you may proceed.
Okay, so at our last meeting last Thursday, we had the presentation, the neighborhood health presentation. And today we have one other addition or two other agenda items, the Housing Trust Fund application and our finance updates. I'd like to ask the board if we would like to continue any discussion on the neighborhood health presentation today, or shall we wait on that, because I believe we went back to staff and requested that they come back to us with additional information and recommendations. So I just wanted to make sure we didn't cut that conversation short, or if other people have had thoughts since then, or if staff had any updates they wanted to share. I just wanted to make the space.
We've had some work on this, Commissioner Thaden, and Matt's got a pretty good recommendation that we came to yesterday. We would recommend or suggest for the committees that we address the Housing Trust Fund grant application first, as it involves a time-sensitive application. And then we do have a staff recommendation in coordination with Commissioner Ansari on the neighborhood health. We'd like to give that in committee today in preparation for a December decision by the board, and then move to finance. Melinda and team is quite ready for that. And we do have a new item that has been worked with, and if Commissioner Ansari would like to comment, that'd be great, but we've been looking at some possibilities with Belmont University and some work that we think is worthy of bringing to the committee's attention if time permits. And the development team's ready to present that. So in summary, recommend the Tennessee Housing Trust Fund first, followed by follow-on recommendation from staff on neighborhood health, followed by finance update, and if time permits, an option that is only in concept but is worthy at a mature enough level to be discussed in committee. Matt, is that about what we came up with? So. And for anyone else on staff, that's, I believe, what we coordinated yesterday on our call. If anyone from staff would like to chime in, please do so. But That's for your consideration for the committee chairmans Ansari and Thayton.
That works for me to change the agenda around. Is that all right with you, Commissioner Ansari? Okay, great.
Yes.
Buck, I believe we're turning it over to you for the Housing Trust Fund application.
Okay, can you hear me okay? I've been accused of being weak. Okay.
We can hear you great.
All right, great. So on the Tennessee Housing Trust Fund grant application, the write-up is pretty complete, but this was a little time sensitive. We didn't get this grant application until October 22nd, and we need a board recommendation, a board approval to commit to this grant application, and that grant goes in December 10th. And so what we're asking for $500,000 from the Tennessee Housing Trust Fund. We're available to do this, to compete for this grant, because we just executed $500,000 for Curve Victory Hall. So as soon as those monies were expended, we became eligible to compete again, and that's why this is prescient for us. So after looking at our best opportunity to compete, and based on the timing to use the money by December 31st, 2023, we believe that putting 4 units allotting 4 units, 2 for children aging out of foster care and 2 for veterans, homeless veterans, in the Boscobel 4 project is our best competitive grant application. And so we're asking the committee to consider this potentially for vote today so that we can move to the board next month and approve this grant application. This specific grant application for THDA was focused on children aging out of foster care and homeless veterans. And so we believe that this is a good fit for this project. And I've conversed with Will Biggs, and we'll be able to weave this special demographic into the waiting list and meet the need of the community with affordable housing in this project going forward. Expecting this to be 4 one-bedroom units in the Boscobel 4 development. Subject to questions.
Buck, can you help us understand, because these were originally slated as obviously replacement units, I just want to make sure that we are very clear that this is not taking away any units from the one-to-one replacement that we've committed to in Casey.
No, this is not. This is that, you know, we currently carry a waiting list at Casey, and when available units, when units become available and unoccupied, this demographic or this special need could be brought into those units. And specifically, what's good for this is these are one bedrooms, so this is not a family. While it's a multifamily property, these are usually just for individuals to move into those. So this does not take away any affordable housing.
Other questions from commissioners? Hearing none. Is there a motion to approve that MDHA applies for the Housing Trust Fund grant?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please signal by, oh, I believe, sorry, we have to do roll call. Saul, will you do roll call?
Yes. Okay. We'll start with the F&A committee. Chairman Thayton, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Purcell?
Aye.
Commissioner Ansari?
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell?
Aye.
Move to the Development Committee. Chair Ansari?
Aye.
Commissioner Purcell?
Aye.
Commissioner Coleman?
Aye.
Commissioner Campbell?
Aye.
Commissioner Thayton?
Aye.
And the motion passes in both committees.
All right. So moving over to Matt and Jim on neighborhood health.
Yes, I think that Buck Dellinger will lead a discussion on the proposal.
Okay, so I think I'm sharing a slide. Can you see that? Okay.
Yes.
So just as there's always a context in everything, and Neighborhood Health gave a very compelling presentation last week, and we appreciate that from their CEO, Brian Hell. Just a little bit more of a written discussion going forward. And so, Neighborhood Health requested that MDHA to transfer the ownership of 600 Shelby as a transfer of property for their 2 plots of land on within the Casey footprint. A couple considerations to take into account as we consider this option. The Family Dollar site on this slide is nomenclature is FD. The Family Dollar site is comprised of 0.7 acres and zoned commercial neighborhood. And what that means specifically is that we can have 3 to 4 story mixed, mid-rise mixed use is permitted. So there's some height opportunity with that site. Per the SP, the Neighborhood Health site is comprised of 0.7 acres and is intended to be replaced by a park. And it also has a Heights Drive will connect through that building once it's demolished. Neighborhood Health's existing Casey clinic, we transferred that to them in 1999, specifically between April and May 10th, 1999, for $1 to enable them to compete for a grant. And so there's good discussion in the board minutes. This is not normally the MDHA position is to transfer land to a leaser. But in this case, we did to enable Neighborhood Health to compete for this grant, which they were able to win, and they put that money into their various projects. They needed to be the landowner in order to compete. Failing to transfer the land, if we don't transfer the Family Dollar site to Neighborhood Health can still operate. So it doesn't really affect their operation. The Envision Casey development plans offer other relocation opportunities for Neighborhood Health. And I've put another slide in here to show those specifically if someone wants to request that information. Neighborhood Health likes this opportunity at this time because it works for their finances due to an influx of capital, and that's due to the damage that was done to their Main Street building on the tornado in March. So considering the options, and there's 2 options, and there's always more permutations, but these are 2 basic options, is transfer the Family Dollar property to and basically meet the request that Neighborhood Health made, or MDHA retain the Family Dollar property and pursue mixed use, mixed income, affordable housing development on that corner. So considering option A first, pros, Neighborhood Health would move to its preferred retail location. So this is a good move for their business plan. Neighborhood Health would improve its proximity to elderly population at Edgefield, and that again helps their business model and moves that operation closer to a needy population. For MDHA, the pro of this is that then we would have the property we need to complete the park.
I'm sorry, did Buck?
Buck,
go out
I
for
think
everyone else?
yeah, Buck, I think you checked out. We lost audio.
We might have lost Buck altogether.
Yeah, he's got a weird symbol on his wood square.
I'll text them.
Maybe it's possible for him to call in. Well, one option is that someone else takes over oh, we see Buck's there. So, okay.
You run up the vote. Somehow we just lost the vote.
This is Brant. I just told Buck his audio dropped out, so he's trying to get it back up.
Okay.
Just give him a few minutes.
Am I reconnected? Okay.
You
So
are.
I'm blaming Jim Filgen for that because he's the one that told me I was weak last Friday, and so he sabotaged me. I'm sure. Okay. Back. So did we get through option A? So the second con of option A is if we forego
Buck, we could no longer see your screen, and I
Just
think
share
it
your
was,
screen again.
yeah, it was helpful to see.
And can you put it in slideshow view as well, Buck?
I will. Okay, so I'm going to pick up with the cons for option A, if that's okay. Okay, so the resultant use as a standalone medical facility is not the site's highest and best use. So their intent is to keep it at 1 story and to operate in the building as it exists right now. The future cost to MDHA of not developing that 2nd, 3rd, and 4th story of residential is it takes away an opportunity for us to handle the density that's required to build out the envisioned Casey master plan. So we have a minimum number of units that we need to build to recapitalize the current 716 units that were recapitalized, and 786 is what the number is on Casey, but Barrett Manor is 70 of those units, and they're in great shape. So the recapitalizing effort is to rebuild 716 units, and that is 40% to 45% of the future development. So to give away that opportunity is an effect on future Casey development, because we need that space to build mixed income, affordable housing on the Family Dollar site. So option B, retain the Family Dollar property. A pro is MDHA maintains ownership, and basically we use that property to the highest and best use, as I mentioned from one of the cons. MDHA maintains flexibility to develop for future residential and retail uses, and so it does give us an opportunity should Neighborhood Health decide not to be a partner in that development on Family Dollar. We do have the ability to create revenue through a retail lease on the 1st floor, presuming that we want to do a mixed-use development on this very attractive corner on the street frontage with Shelby. The con is that a new and updated facility for Neighborhood Health will be delayed, and the completion of the park and Heights Drive could be delayed. So it's always our intent that I don't believe that we will be building up near that element, for 10 to 15 years. Did I drop again? Okay. Any questions about these options before or any questions about the geography? Because I've got one slide that can point out the geography.
I have a question, and I want to make sure I understood you correctly, that the Neighborhood Health Center is not the highest and best use for the Family Dollar property. The second point was that MDHA has no plans for actualizing the highest and best use for 10 to 15 years. Is that correct?
No, I'll clarify. The Family Dollar site, if they move it, if Neighborhood Health goes to the Family Dollar site as they intend to, they will keep the building as it is and not build and not use the height opportunity there.
Yes, I understand that.
We can build on there as soon as the utilities allow it. So when I said 10 to 15 years, I was talking about the Neighborhood Health, the area around the current Neighborhood Health location. I'm talking about the residential multifamily in that location. And the reason why that becomes the last place we develop is because we've got to go, it's the highest, one of the highest elevations, and we've got to go from low to high in our development of utilities on that side of Casey. That gets into the bigger master plan discussion.
Okay, then I have another question. This is related to amenities, and I'm sure we've covered this before, but I'm not recalling it. The school was one of the things that were necessary to realize the potential of Envision Casey. What were the park, and did access to health figure into that? I can't recall.
Yes, ma'am. So So in the community campus concept, and I outlined this in green, there were 4 uses. There was a library, a park, neighborhood health, and a commissary. The Explorer School was a 5th. And so inside that green area, per this master plan, is where we've got a master plan program that would have put those uses in those buildings at that location. Again, that was neighborhood health, parks, library, and a commissary. And that was per the plan in 2016.
Buck, what was the projected timing on creating those uses in that community campus?
So, per the MOU that we wrote with Neighborhood Health, we were looking at 2018, 2019 for that development. And so that's how we were backwards planning and working towards new market tax credits, as well as pursuing Metro money to build out the library and parks and those other options in that green box.
And what's the status of all of that? Where are we?
So where we are right now is the Parks has decided not to follow through, and this is not an incrimination of anyone. This is just where we are right now. Is per the program is a 35,000 square foot building to go in that location. They're satisfied with about the 15 to 18,000 square foot building, the community center that's there right now. They're satisfied with that location. We have a library that I'm going to move my cursor right now in this area. There's a library that we have at full construction development, the construction documents, and have a guaranteed maximum price estimate right now. So as soon as Metro would allow it, we could go forward with that project, and that is one of our nominated projects to receive new market tax credits. The commissary has backed out. So the entrepreneurs that saw that as an option has declined that option. And so the last piece was neighborhood health, and when we were trying to work them into the green square, they had some demands that were challenging for us, and they from a condo agreement. So a condo agreement, without going into a lot of legal speak, is that you've got 2 uses in the same building and 2 owners of the same building, and they have to share some common services, usually parking lot. Sometimes it might be HVAC or other mechanical systems. And though Neighborhood Health became a little uncomfortable with a condo agreement, we got them close to being comfortable a couple times, but ultimately they declined to go into this site. They felt that this site did not support a bus line and took them further away from their patients. So that's when we decided they decided in March of 2018 to basically go status quo. And status quo is, on this chart, is in the current Neighborhood Health site. I've got that called out with the pink box.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
But can you clarify for me? I understand that you're saying, 10 to 15 years for their current site, when we would get to their current site. For these, and I'm sure you're moving into this, but for these other possible locations that have been identified, and what you identified in the last time you presented was that there were a lot of other potential options.
Right.
Can you just remind me here about when we think we could get to those, or could it ever be reprioritized for those to move faster?
So the timing of anything that's developed on the northern block, the northern highlighted area, is impacted by the storm water that has to go down 5th Street. So we can build all we want on this side, on the south side of Casey, because we're about to do a hard bid. We're about to get the feedback from a hard bid, but because of storm water, we can't build over here because of the runoff. And so if we can move that up in the process, or if we get Metro Water to allow us to do another small development without and allow that to occur without the full stormwater removal infrastructure in place, we could go faster on this side. So on the north side of the property. So those are the two locations, obviously from left to right, are the ones that go faster, because when we work on stormwater, unless we get an exception from Metro Water, you've got to go from low to high into your development. So the Family Dollar site and this site on 6th and Sylvan could go faster. This on 7th and Heights Drive could go next, and this one would go last, near the current location. And so these are the blocks that will be the last ones to develop as we build out the Envision Casey Master Plan.
Commissioner Faden, the easy way to think of this is think of it as a C, the development pattern starting essentially at the planned community campus, which is really Kirkpatrick Park, then sweeping down towards the river, around the essentially west side of the park, and then up towards CWA, and then back up. So the things can shift, certainly, based on priorities, but the general development pattern is a C, going from the right side of the screen down, and then up on the top of the screen, back up, finishing essentially the neighborhood health site would essentially be the last in that development pattern.
And one other, since we're looking at this slide, what is in the turquoise outline is the MTA WeGo bus route. So Neighborhood Health was very interested in being as close as possible to a bus route. And as we develop Envision Casey, this is how MTA or WeGo has, per the SP, decided to support the Envision Casey master plan and that population with that route. So it doesn't go up Shelby, it goes down 5th to Lenore, back up 7th, and then back on the Shelby.
My other question, Buck, so I heard loud and clear from Neighborhood Health that, and Brian, that, a major part of why the Family Dollar site was desirable was the existing building. And so I think that the question mark for me walking out of the conversation is, are they actually in a financial position to assume any other site and be able to still pull off the development and move?
So, yeah, that's their decision. I mean, I believe. No, I just don't want to put context or words in their mouth. I don't know what their financial situation is like.
So, Beck, looking at this map, there are 3 other possible locations. One very near the current Family Dollar site, and then 2 others that are close together going up the hill, as I call it.
Right.
And for storm utility reasons, primarily stormwater runoff, and you have to move up the hill. The one that could be utilized the soonest would be the rectangle behind the current Family Dollar site. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And that's the one, and every year, well, at least recently, we've been pursuing a JP Morgan Chase grant and other large financial opportunities, and that's been the site that we've continued to nominate for other grant opportunities for mixed income, mixed use development on that corner to support neighborhood health. Unfortunately, we didn't get that grant last year, but that's our on-the-shelf best opportunity, we believe, to get a grant to support neighborhood health.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So, any more questions about either the options, pros and cons, or the map as we're looking at this?
This is Bill Purcell. Just very quickly, then, to summarize so that I'm clear. There are 3 locations that we believe would meet the needs of neighborhood health. And there is a question with the water department. We have not, and for obvious reasons, we've not pursued going back to the water department to see if they would, given the size, the location, this change, the community needs. There are many things that the water department might consider, but we have not checked in to see whether or not they would allow us or allow neighborhood health to expedite any of those 3 locations. We think the one to the west would go faster based upon what we've been told before, but in any event, we could go back to water, and neighborhood health could go back to water, and that might not be an issue. We just don't know. But we do believe all 3 of those locations would work for them. On the bus route, I'm a little bit baffled because they chose the site on Shelby because they said it was closer to a bus, but in fact, it appears that the closer location is the one in the middle of the 3 blocks.
The current bus location does go up Shelby, but the future bus route will go up 7th, which is you're correct to say that would be the best location for future bus route.
Right. Again, assuming that the bus routes don't change or that the bus service doesn't change, that's at least the planning at this moment. So there's it strikes me on the transportation issue, the proposed locations or possible locations to the west and in the middle are in essence equal. And the only question then is the one that our chair asked, and that is whether or not they could proceed with their grant applications and the like if they were offered either of those possible locations. I actually heard, I thought I heard a willingness to approach any other location, but I accept the fact that this has not been confirmed with neighborhood health. But so if that's all accurate, what is missing from the options, I think, before us is an affirmative response that we would indeed, were we not to give them the Family Dollar site, that we would indeed work to find an acceptable site within the balance of the property that we own. And that's one. 2, I'm a little bit unclear. You suggest that there is a delay inherent in option B, and I don't know why that would be And I didn't hear that from the United Neighborhood Health people, that there was a delay if you chose another location.
The delay would be the requirement to build.
So, Mr. Chair, just to be clear, the stormwater issue is an issue, but keep in mind the currently available funding sources for MDHA are our operating cash flow that we generate for the equity and then LIHTC allocations. The best estimate that we have today based on those funding sources, and it certainly could change, is that if we are successful in gaining some additional capital from the CWA site in Lenore, and if we are able to utilize TIF to help pay for the water, or the water pipe gets paid for another way, based upon the funding availability and the development pattern, the sites identified as possible locations in the current plan would not be constructed for between 8 to 12 years from now. Now, things could change, but again, we're talking about large developments that are very capital intensive. And so there is just a capital availability issue. And there is somewhat of a development pattern issue, right? I mean, obviously, to build in these possible locations, we're gonna have to tear down existing homes and to tear those down and leaving other ones around them in place just is a little bit of a stress on the development plan. But just want to be very clear, the development plan, which is flexible and can change, calls for the possible locations to be constructed in between 8 and 12 years from now, based upon current funding availability. If we develop CWA and Lenore Gardens, that timeline becomes materially extended, right? What we have laid out is sort of an idea that we do, and so we're getting into a lot of complexity here, but I just want to appropriately manage expectations on when the possible locations would in fact be redeveloped as multi-use, mixed-use, mixed-income projects. It's realistically 8 to 12 years from now. And Buck, please correct me if any of that is incorrect.
It is based on current assumptions.
You're on mute, Mr. Purcell.
That would be my definition of a delay. All right, so they are not possible locations. So the last question, when you presented to us previously, you had a purple box on the screen up in the park area, which was, I think, a discussion you were having earlier. And there are, I think, other areas within this area that had been previously considered. So assuming now those possible locations are what we would call distant at best, what else is actually available, and what happened to the site that you had identified on the previous slide from the last meeting?
I'm not. If there was another site on a previous slide, that was erroneous.
There was a purple box somewhere to right, basically dead center on your slides. I thought on a slide you showed us before that had it on the edge of the park, and we had a discussion, which I was a part of, about park locations and visibility.
Right, and it's the two white boxes right now are the ones that represent on the edge of the park opportunities.
And perhaps what I saw was something that would appear to be actually in the area that's described as the park.
No, then that was a leftover object from some previous slide, and we apologize for that.
All right.
But these are the two opportunities that we have right here.
Okay.
And there's those. We believe that these are the three best opportunities that works the best with the Planning Commission's intent and the Planning Department's intent.
I understand. In 8 to 12 years. So the space, and you're saying basically none of the space that has been cleared is possible from a staff perspective. There is no other cleared land available other than the Family Dollar site at this time.
That's accurate. at this point. Everything else is accounted for in current construction and current architectural development on the side of Casey that is the most ripe to build on. When we presented, as we were working, and this is a fair question, as we were working through the various options with Neighborhood Health since 2017, we presented them options in what was the Boscobel 3 Red Oak Flats footprint, and they didn't like that. So they denied an opportunity to be over here, as my pointer is, because it didn't fit with their intent, and it took them further away from the Edgefield property. So as we were developing, we asked them with each phase if they would be interested in something that was available on this side of the property. Now, it would have taken some work with planning because this part of the area, this part of Casey, is not presently permitted for medical use. The green box area is, and along where these blue dots are, and right here is permitted for those uses up to a certain level of square feet.
It seems to me part of the challenge is from the neighborhood health perspective is they're going to have to wait a long time. And they have a decision to make about staying and using their current site or improving the building. And
that part is not true. So
okay.
the money they have for the roof, the insurance money they referenced has nothing to do with this building. This is for another building in East Nashville. So their decision is not, do we spend money on the existing building, the $750,000 or whatever the insurance? Do we spend it on this building or do we spend it on the Family Dollar site? They simply happen to have money from an insurance claim from another property that they would like to apply.
But they could stay where they are. They could make the decision to stay where they are at their current site because they don't have another, or at least I didn't hear them say there were other possible locations in the community that could possibly be an option for them without having to wait 8 to 12 years. That's what I'm trying to get to. So MDHA has its project timelines and challenges working within those. And then neighborhood health, if it wants to try to stay in the neighborhood, I'm trying to figure out what its options, other than waiting 8 to 12 years for a possibility within Envision Casey's project plans.
That's right. And so, Buck, I guess I would ask, so I think Kay makes a fair point, but I think there's actually two other considerations for the board. The first is had we not acquired this site, there would be no conversation about this site. Had we not spent $1.675 million and bought this site, it would not be a conversation, and neighborhood health would be in the exact situation that we've just described had we not purchased this property. So I think the first question we have to ask ourselves that is really try to understand, is this a request from an organization or is this an obligation of MDHA to help neighborhood health meet its own business plans? I think we first have to determine as a board, is that what we really are? Because what we've really behaved as the land acquisition arm for neighborhood health. And we just have to ask, is that what we are, is that what we're doing? But I think the bigger issue here is I think that this is a land use policy issue for MDHA, regardless of who the request is coming from, is do we have a fair, transparent, and publicly acknowledged process for disposing of land? Because that's essentially what we're doing. We've used MDHA assets to buy land, and now we are transferring to another non-affiliated and private entity in the city. And so I think that is a hard question that we need to answer as a board, because What stops someone that says, hey, we'd like to trade you 57 acres on Ashland City Highway for all of Lenore Gardens? You can build lots of housing off Ashland City, and we can build high rises on Lenore Gardens. I think we actually need to come with a policy, a plan, or something that says this is how we dispose property, or we execute a sale in such that's a fair and transparent way. And so, in many ways, I feel like this request should help us move to clarifying that. But I feel like that this is the tail wagging the dog.
Aoli, I think I perceive it just slightly differently, which is when we do these master planning processes, we are effectively saying these are the activities that the committee has come to, or the development projects that the committee has come to, where we will work in support of trying to accomplish those. And I think that the tension in this project is that the neighborhood wants the health center and they also want their housing, right? And so we're having to hold both of these and evaluate which one is more important and, the best strategic decision for accomplishing all of the goals in the Envision project. I think the challenge I'm having is what I'm not clear on is why isn't there a third option on the table that relates to the Family Dollar site, whereby, we maintain, if we don't have the capital right now, we maintain the air rights to develop above it. And I understand that will present issues, especially related to parking. But I'm wondering where the third option could come from, where this could be a win-win and we could accomplish both of those goals that, have come through the planning.
And could I then add a fourth option, which is that as I look at all of the land, go back if you would to the slide, Buck, I know that we've been thinking and dreaming about all of this land for a long time, but it is still hard for me to believe that in all of that space there is not somewhere in a green space or an undeveloped space or an unplanned or an unoccupied space that we could not find another option. Maybe that we had some other thinking about it, but that's where I had left the meeting the last time. I had hoped that you all were going to look about other possibilities that would be immediately available to neighborhood health, because at the end, Aoli, we do plan for them. We had planned for them to leave that space. That was our plan. It wasn't this board's plan, but it was the plan of the agency that they would leave that space and go to somewhere else on our site. They haven't located that spot, and that was a longer term effort, but they are able to self-fund. They don't need the low-income tax credits. They don't need funds from us. All they need is land of roughly equal size somewhere else on the site. And I don't think we have to resolve this today. I was going to suggest to the chairs, if those are four possible options to consider, we could come back and neighborhood health could be part of that conversation at the committee meeting in December. I don't think had the understanding that we were going to have a conversation about them today. I didn't know we were going to have a conversation about them today. So it strikes me that maybe my suggestion would be that we put this on the December committee meeting agenda and let the staff take this several weeks to think through options 3 and 4 with neighborhood health, and then come back and then basically start at the top and let's make a decision.
And if I can make sure I just understand the sort of construct of what you're suggesting, might that be something like an agreement where neighborhood health would go to the Family Dollar site for a period of time? There are obviously going to be some costs to that, right? TI, et cetera.
No, that's not my suggestion. That might be option number 3, but my suggestion is that somewhere in the green space that I see, or somewhere in an area that there's somewhere. In fact, I mean, I've heard conversations about developing of gyms and developing of other things. I heard some further conversation about that, the green box up there. I see green space there. At least take one more look at your inventory and see if there's not somewhere within the land that you own that they could go. Would
Yes.
not require waiting for the demolition of or the construction of major stormwater or something else. Just one last look to see if there's not something that's not immediately being developed that would allow them to find comparable space within our existing inventory.
Yes, Commissioner Purcell, I understand that we will take a look at that. I was addressing Commissioner Thaden's request just to make sure I understood the context of that. What I think maybe you were suggesting, but I just want to clarify, that they would perhaps go to the Family Dollar site or some other site for a period of time until one of the other possible locations, if those were determined to be appropriate by both Neighborhood Health and MDHA as a possible location. And then they would relocate. We would retain the right to redevelop the FD site. Is that sort of what you were suggesting?
That's the question on the table, is if it would be possible, if we cannot do the development of the Family Dollar site tomorrow, is there a way where they can effectively take advantage of that site right now without us losing the ability to develop the housing in the future? And if that means relocating them multiple times, or if there's some way to keep them in the building but still be able to retain air rights and do the development that way, I would leave that up to you all to figure out. And obviously I know that's a complicated puzzle, and parking I know is a very big concern of theirs as well, that would have to be factored in. I have no idea if that's possible. I just, it was something I wanted to put on the table and hear the staff feedback on.
Thank you.
I have another just question. I think MDHA has placed a priority on having health facilities within the project. Those health facilities over some period of time have been provided by Neighborhood Health. My question is, are there other providers? Are there other things to consider in terms of how those health services might be provided?
Good question.
Anyone who's working with this?
The answer to that is we'll have to research it to see if there's any other provider. But this is Neighborhood Health is the primary provider for our residents.
Yes.
And so I'm not assuming that my words will be the final words on this matter, but I think there's two things I think that feels like that we're missing. Is that it feels like we're on an expedited time schedule simply because they requested. They haven't identified that they can't provide the services that they currently have at their existing facility. They haven't said that they will be out of business if they don't move from their existing facility. So I do believe that healthcare should be a part of what we're doing, but I do think I'm just really trying to get ourselves around. I think there is some fundamental programmatic stuff as a board, like around the transfer of MDHA land that should be addressed first. And if it becomes when whatever outcomes comes after a clear policy that can be set forth for the agency and for the community, I still want to reiterate, I think that should be our first task before transferring land.
I think if I could speak, and I had to get on my phone because I lost my computer connection. Part of the challenge is that this facility exists within the Envision Casey initiative, or this, and part of the initiative. And so it's not just a simple policy for transfer of land. It's not, because MDHA owns property all over the city.
That's right.
All over the county. So it's different from just transferring a single lot, inner city lot that they own somewhere else, because this challenge is that it fits into, and consideration has to be given to the fact that the vision is for healthcare to be close by. And historically, this entity, Neighborhood Health, has been the provider for decades for residents living in the area. And I think that's part of the challenge, is that just a simple land use transfer policy, I think, is a bit narrow, because you have to consider other factors. So I'd just like to make that point.
That's right. That's right. I think I do think that we had never envisioned either in the other sites actually giving land to Neighborhood Health. What we had envisioned was a building in which we would create a retail use that was part of a mixed use development, and they would have the opportunity to essentially own the condominium component that was their retail use.
Okay.
Matt, are you speaking? Okay. All right. So at this point, I believe that we will wait and have staff continue to study this and bring recommendations and options to our next committee meeting in December. So with that, let's move on to the next agenda item, the finance schedules and audit update.
Okay, can you hear me? Just want to make sure. Okay.
She's got it. Go.
So, Mr. Harbison, do you want to speak? Sorry.
No, just was going to introduce you and say we worked pretty hard. We have a cash position document you should have received. Even though it discusses our cash, some of the cash in it is still restricted under conditions. For example, UDAG is listed as a source of cash for us, but it would require Metro Council action to use it in any fashion. I think our basic question was, how much cash do we have that's available to spend? And that number is roughly 17 million, and Melinda will get to that. So, but it's a good position to be in that we didn't have cash at all to spend some years ago, really in any unrestricted way. And that's the seed money that we look to and plan for these development activities that the board is discussing now. So I'm going to take the ball and run with it.
Okay, I'm going to try. I'm not as good at sharing as Buck, but I want to try to get to that point. Hold on a second. Let me see. It's not the one. Sorry. Gus, can you get to, I'm sorry, I need Gus's help. Can you get to the budget to actual comparison? Then I'll talk about, just wanted to kind of give you an update of the, thank you, appreciate it. Where we are on the audits right now, we've closed out the fiscal year, 9/30 fiscal year. Currently, we're working with our auditors, just kind of give you a quick update on the 4 single purpose entity properties that we have that have the HUD loans on them. It's the John Henry Hill, 10th and Jefferson, Kirkpatrick, and Madison. They're working through, they did tenant file review last week and working through the audit procedures on those. Those are the most time sensitive. They have to be into HUD and finished by December 31st with the multifamily submissions done too. And then we're working on our MDHA entity audit now, doing the compliance. They're doing planning and compliance testing and selections. They have selected the rental assistance program, Norman's group, for their major program testing this year, based on the numbers that he put up. And then we also have going on a 9/30. The Basketball Heights Development Company, Inc. is the new market tax credit entity that for the Explorer School. That is a 9/30 year end. So we have that audit going on right now. And then coming up next will be the planning and the compliance part of the LIHTC properties that we have that are the calendar year ends. So anyway, so that's kind of where we are. Don't want to, I know that we've spent a lot of time on the neighborhood health, and but I want to make sure. I wanted to make sure that we provided you with the draft September financials and results balances that we have so far. It's a work in process, but we feel pretty good about the numbers and the closeout that we had in October. We're working on now our audit schedules, which tends to things fall out when you're doing the audit schedules of different reclasses that maybe we need to do on the balance sheet, income statement. So, but I wanted to go ahead and before it was too late into the year and give you the draft budget to actual comparison and then the balance sheet comparison from or the balance sheet roll up between the MDHA properties and the grants and the LIHTC deals and then the cash, kind of a summary of cash. So first of all, the first slide here, and I don't know, but Gus, if you can, the bottom parts, if you can make it a little bit smaller. Yeah. So the first three columns is kind of, this is what we presented a couple of times to you guys this year. It's kind of a summary of the budget to actual comparison. It doesn't stray far from the conversations that we had in the 2021 budget when we compared it to what we projected for 2020. As you see, we ended the year with total revenue over budget of about $1 million, a little over $1 million. But then we had expenses, total operating expenses, a little over $1 million over budget. A lot of that has to do with the tornado expenses that we still anticipate getting some insurance proceeds on, had not gotten as of year end, and then COVID related expenses that we had that we have a FEMA claim in to the federal government for that we had not received any funds, but we expect that hopefully next year. So, but we ended the year net operating income for MDHA managed properties a little over, almost $13 million net operating income. And then the Levy Place property, which is it's a LIHTC property, so it's 9 months, it's a calendar year end. We have projected, or right now, actual of $481,000 of net operating income. So we're in a good position there. Kind of highlighted some of the significant fluctuations between the revenue and expense line items. Like I said, I won't read it all to you. I know you had it, you received the information. So do you have any questions on this slide specifically?
Melinda, I'm not following. Can you explain the principal payment expenses item? I'm just not following.
It's just a kind of an area we show, even though it's not a income statement line item. It's kind of a cash basis. So we show the cash outflows of principal payments and interest expense for the debt service that we have. So that's why we pull it below the line, along with the HUD replacement reserve expense. It's items that on that line item, it's items that were maintenance type expenses that were funded by the HUD reserve, replacement reserve escrows that we have on hand. So again, it's not a true income statement. It's more of a cash flow type balance sheet, budget to actual comparison when we include the principal payments. Just wanted to show the cash outflows for that. And you'll see in the Levy Place, we had kind of a flip-flop between interest expense and principal payments. We were lucky this year with the interest rates going so low. That's one of the CITC loans that has the prime rate less 4%, so it doesn't go below zero. So we've been lucky with most of our LIHTC deals with the CITC loans that have all been at 0%. So that's really saved us some money on the development side on the ones that are the finished development, Mosley and Manning, and then Levy Place. So anything else on that, this slide?
Melinda, real quick, why are we showing, why are we showing depreciation as a line item? I mean, again, I thought I heard you say this is our cash kind of sort of spend. Depreciation is really a non-cash expense,
right?
Because we don't actually have any tax burden. Is it more accurate to say is that if our net operating income was 12.727, that the HUD replacement reserve was actual cash out the door. The interest and principal expense was actually cash out the door to a lender. The gain in sale on fixed assets is a real cash outcome. But the depreciation, we didn't write $10.8 million of checks to anyone, did we?
No. Right. Like I said, it's a combination, and we're kind of tweaking this as we go. Combination, and that's why we show the budget to actual comparison is a zero effect. Depreciation is the budget equals the actual. So you're right. I mean, we do take that out because it's an income statement GAAP basis reporting. But as far as the budget to actual, it's just you're right. It's not a cash outflow. So we could tweak that in the future to get a true, income as far as cash basis. So.
That's right. So don't try to answer this now, but hold that, because what I tried to do was add up all four on the next two slides, and I look at that, and it looks like we're $5 million up from a cash position. But when we get there, is it really closer to 15 or 16, or is it really closer to 5? That's the question I have at the end of both slides.
Well, the 734,000. It was an actual expense that we incurred, but that was funded. It was kind of it's replacing the operating, the unrestricted cash Mr. Harbison was talking about. It's replacing the replacement reserves. We're using those and moving it into the unrestricted cash amount.
No. I'm just looking at the depreciation line item.
Okay, sorry.
So if I read all four of these columns on both slides, I would add up all of the net income, because I would expect at the end of the years, that's how much cash I would have. I would lose 1.2 on the first slide. On the first side, I would add 3.35, 335 in the second one. I would go in and I say, oh, that's the sum of my new cash position. And I'm just I'm just asking you to answer, is that a true reflection of our cash position, cash that's been generated in this fiscal year so far?
I would say yes. What we don't have on here, though, is capital, real true capital items. So, of course, the PDRA properties, we wouldn't have any, but the LIHTC deals, that we don't have this presented. We don't have Mosley and Manning on here. I know that last meeting you asked about, we're going to try to get together for December a projection of the actual to what was actually performed when we did the deal, the LIHTC deal at the time. So we're going to try to get that to you guys next board meeting. So there's nothing else. Can we go to the next slide, Gus? Sorry. It was the second page. No, the budget to actual for the central office cost center. Sorry, there. Yeah, okay. So again, highlighting central office cost center, we ended the year, the net operating income was a little bit over budgeted, about $200,000. Again, we discussed this in depth at our budget meetings, but the main purpose, the main reason for that is, and it's highlighted down below, is the money that we spent testing for COVID is about $216,000 in the central office, and then we had some expenses that we incurred during the tornado of about $32,000. So if we in the 2021, if we get reimbursed for part of our COVID cost for employee testing and PPE and different things like that for teleworking, then we're hoping that we'll put that back into the central office coffers. So, but we ended the year a little under 500,000 net operating loss for central office. With rental assistance, because we were able to get funding for CARES Act funding for Norman's group for the Section 8 program, we were able to get about $1.9 million in admin funds, and then $5.2 million came in September for HAP CARES Act funding. that HUD and all the training sessions that I've sat through with HUD and other CPA and entities that have helped us with this accounting is that they allowed us to use the admin funds for COVID-related expenses and any eligible operating expenses for the voucher program. So in September, we were able to capture and use up most of the CARES Act funds that we had received from, I think we got the first funding in May and then one more in August, the second funding in August for admin. So that helped us in the year with rental assistance with 5.7 million net operating income, which normally breaks even. It's more of a pass through, but because of the COVID, the CARES money that we received, we are in a good position starting the 2021 year as with both HAP reserves and admin reserves. So I just wanted to reflect that in this budget to actual comparison. Anybody have anything on this slide that want to talk about or more detail on?
Yeah. But so I just simply want to and so what are you saying to us in summary?
In summary, on the budget to actual on both of these slides.
No, if you look at all this information that's been presented, what are you trying to communicate to the members of the Finance Committee?
It's a lot of information, a lot of detail that we're trying to roll up summary, but we're in a good position. Like Mr. Harbison said, financially, we're in a very good position. Going forward, we have projected what our sweep's going to be next year. We're on target or maybe a little above that. I think we had a good year considering the tornado and the COVID trials and tribulations. I think we've had a good year financially. So that's my summary. So.
Got it. So if I were to ask, did we where would we see how much cash that we would expect to have generated in FY20? Like where is that number?
Well, we don't have the cash flow. I can get that to you next time. So if you want to, I didn't put the cash flow in because we're still tweaking, some of the schedules. So I just wanted to make sure the budget to actual I felt like was a pretty good indication. I mean, we can look at, if you want to look at the next slide, the combining net position statement. So it's this one here. So this is where we ended the year as far as our balance sheet. And I didn't give it to you, but this morning I thought, well, I need to put in kind of on my notes, put in what last year's balance sheet looked like. So in total assets last year for FY 2019, we had 666 million, a little over 666 million, which is a difference of about $33 million. I mean, 33 million in net assets. Most of it is in CIP and in net assets. Cash went down because last year we were in the throes of still building, in the middle of building Mosley. We were in the middle of building Manning. Boscobel 3 had closed, so we had funds that were set aside in restricted funds that we've used during the year for construction-related projects. Couple of some of the construction-related projects that have ongoing this year that, as we know, some of them have completed, some are still ongoing, but almost completed, was Harper Cove. We finished that. Boscobel 1 or Mosley finished. CP2 is just about all 100% complete. Curve Victory Hall, Boscobel 3, Randy Rogers, the central maintenance building is almost complete. Boscobel 4 is ongoing. We started using some of our reserves for the Casey outflow, the money for the Metro Water that Buck was talking about earlier. So we've increased our assets of the agency by using some of the cash on hand that we've had. But as far as how how we've included, I mean, I'll have to get you the cash flow statement next time. I think that's the true picture of where the cash went in and out. We have so many different grants that are just passed through, but then there's obviously items where we have proceeds from loans that go to pay for some of the capital additions, but then a lot of the things that we do internally and we keep on the strategic reserve chart is money that we use for our unrestricted reserves. So this is the balance sheet, the net position. I know this still doesn't answer your question, Ailey, but this is kind of where I just wanted to present the combined with the discretely presented component units and MDHA's combined balance sheet as of 9/30. Any questions on this? Okay.
Melinda, remind me again what DCU represents.
It's discretely presented component units. It's our LIHTC deals. It's Levy Place. It's Randy Rogers, Mosley, Manning, all those. It's the 12/31 year ends. So.
Okay.
Okay. So cash and investment. Jim Thilgen kind of wrote up a good summary of where what our cash is and the kind of explanation. And I know you guys have this schedule, but if you'll go to the next schedule that shows the detail of. I just wanted to make sure because I know I don't know if it was last board meeting or the previous one. There was a discussion about cash, and I came up with and I said, we have $44 million of cash, but in the unrestricted, because of the way we report it in our FDS and HUD reporting for our auditors, the audit and GAAP reporting, we report as of 9/30, we had $39 million in what we report as unrestricted cash, which is a little bit confusing because in that unrestricted cash balance, and again, we have to report it the way that GAAP and the FDS, the financial data schedule, HUD reporting system wants. So 17.2, almost 17.3 million of that is what we consider as the operational cash strategic reserves, unrestricted, true unrestricted cash as of 9/30. And then the MDHA managed PBRA operating cash is 15 million at the end of the year. And that's what we're projecting, that, we'll be able to sweep at least 8.5 is what we're projecting, which we think we'll do better than that. But at that 15 million, we don't sweep all of that cash. We usually sweep about 80% of that. And this is actual just cash. So it doesn't account for like any kind of liability, current liabilities, accounts payable that's on our financial statement. So I looked at it this morning. We've got about $3.6 million in liabilities. So if you take that out at 80%, we get to about $9 million in the sweep. So that's what we're still kind of projecting. We're showing the Section 8 rental assistance, the admin reserves on hand. That's from the COVID, the CARES money that we got. So normally that's a break even, or even some years it's been a negative because they've underfunded us on our admin, but we were able to recoup some of that with the CARES money. Operating Freeman Webb manages some of our properties. So we have $1.8 million in operating cash at Freeman Webb managed properties. We have some TIF funds that are left over from the admin money that we get in May for when we do our TIF billing, and that's to fund our urban development department. And then like Mr. Harbison said, we have UDAG funds and some other housing trust fund grants that we got that are in the cash balance of the 39 million. And then we have the $72.8 million in restricted cash. I won't go through those individuals. The biggest majority of that is the replacement reserve escrows for the PBRA properties. And then, of course, the rental assistance hat balance, which we normally don't have. As you know, we went from shortfall through rental assistance through up into being a millionaire at the end of the year. So, but that money will be used up in 2021. So, and then we do have some investments, some certificate of deposits at Citizens Bank, 2.2 million. So if you include that, that's unrestricted investment. So you include that in with the 17 million. It gets to the 19 million that is on the memo that we typed up, just to kind of show you where how the cash kind of shakes out. So,
Melinda, one question I had, you and Jim, was, you know, the rainy day fund is something that we've talked about a lot. You know, I think other organizations talk about it, like their organizational or operational reserves. And, you know, I think that is a best practice. And I'm wondering if that is just something where we should actually have it be its own line item, because, you know, if this board turned over tomorrow, which I don't think is going to happen, that is something where I think that this is just good, sound organizational policy. And I wonder if we should be formalizing it as an organizational policy and then presenting it as such in how we present it in our financials.
I mean, yeah, that would be up to, you know, the finance committee or the board to decide. I mean, you're right. We do include the $6 million in the 17 or, you know, the 19 million with the investments. And in any given day, you know, we could, you know, because all of our grants are reimbursement style grants mostly. So, you know, we're pretty good in our department about, you know, as it gets to a certain level, we draw down those funds, but we do expend those funds in advance and then draw them down afterwards. And normally they're in the same month. So, but at any given time, it's like we've talked about, Mr. Harbison's talked about many times, you know, with the community development grants, some of them, you know, the funding is out there, but it's not loaded into the HUD system. So, and like with the summer youth programs, we go ahead and use that money and pay for those services because we want those not-for-profits to provide those services to the kids. But knowing that the money's coming, but we front that money up front. But you're right, we can present that in the future if you want that it presented that way, just to kind of reserve those funds set aside, the $6 million. And we can adjust it if you think that it's too high or too low. It's kind of just been a guide for us. The vouchers, we usually think a 1 month's voucher submission is about 4.5 million now. So we kind of use that with about 1.5 of other grants, just to, if we don't get, for instance, if something happens and HUD doesn't fund us our HAP money for 1 month, then that's about a $4.5 million outflow that we will have to cover, you know, for the 1 month period. So we kind of used a $6 million, you know, number in the past as a guide to save out, but it can be adjusted up or down depending on, you know, what you guys want to do. So.
Yeah, so I would certainly appreciate, and once again, this is not a request of urgency, so please take your time with it and do it when it's best relative to all of your other work. But a thoughtful policy around that. So, you know, since I've been on the board, it's always been 6 million. I don't know what other considerations have potentially come up, or, you know, whether there's been risk or added protections where that number maybe should be up higher or lower. But I would love to see your all's best thinking for when we say for our organizational sustainability and to ensure that we're never having to deal with a situation where, you know, HUD's slow on payment and we have to get our HAP out the door. You know, what should that number be? And that we can bring it back and hopefully adopt it as a policy for the organization.
Okay, that sounds great. I'll do that. I got that noted.
Chair or others, do you have any comments that you would want to add to that?
This is Bill Purcell. Very quickly, this could also be a question. We are about to launch into a performance audit in the next 6 months. It should be completed in 6 or 7 months, and it would be a very, I think, appropriate thing to ask performance auditors to come back and advise us on as well.
I agree. Most of the time, we're in a lucky position that we do have funds available for I call a rainy day fund. So most of the time, I think other entities, smaller entities, are not as lucky as we are. So, okay, I got that noted. Good recommendation. Thank you, Emily.
So, Jam, just one quick question, Melinda. A couple of months ago, I thought we had set out as an organization, we had set out a framework for where we wanted to see 2019 versus 2020. We set out a standard framework for how we would like to see financial information presented. And I'm just wondering why we went away from what we agreed upon a couple months ago. And can we set as a target for the upcoming periods is that we present all the financial information the same way all the time, because it's very difficult to kind of sort of evaluate how we're performing when this time we stuck depreciation in it, the last time we didn't. This time we've separated them into 4 entities, the last time we didn't. The next time we're going to put a few line items here to show it to you this way, but not that way. It would feel like that as an organizational best practice is that we would have a singular set or a singular way in which we present the financials of the organization. So if you were to look at first quarter versus second quarter versus third quarter versus fourth quarter, it would all be in the same format.
Okay. I'm sorry. I thought that when we were doing that discussion, it was mainly for the budget process when we were presenting the budget to actual comparison. You're right. But you're right. We can certainly modify this right here is easy for us because this is the way the auditors and the in-year-end reporting. So again, I wanted to get you the information as quickly as possible. I know there's been questions about the financial, the cash and the financial impact of where we are as of year end. And so this is the way that we report it for our audit and the way that HUD wants it reported on the financial data schedule. But we're certainly open to coming up with a plan, looking back at the meetings that we had for our budget meetings. If that's the way that you want the actual, quarterly reporting done, then we can certainly do that too. So I'll make a note.
So I guess I would just ask, Commissioner Thaden, as the chair of the Finance Committee, do we think there's value in seeing financial information presented consistently from period to period? And if we need to, and should we make that as part of just a very clear policy, so it's not a negotiation, or I remember what you said last time, or we changed it this time?
Okay. Emily, do you have an opinion?
Sorry?
A recommendation from Aoli? Do you have, that's...
No, I certainly appreciate that. Melinda, I want to be mindful. We're not trying to create additional burden. And so, if this is something where, in light of time constraints or anything like that, we need to maybe do 6-month check-ins, where we have quarterly light ones like this please feel free to talk to us about it. We want to make it practical and feasible. But I do like the idea of consistency, to Commissioner Ansari's point. I think it will be very helpful to the board over time if possible. Okay,
sounds great. Well, what I'll do is Jonathan and I'll work together, and we'll get with Jim Thilgen and Matt. I know he presented some information, I think last board meeting. So, and then just kind of run it by you guys, if that's okay, see if it's something that works for everybody then.
Yes, and I do want to acknowledge, I appreciate that this has been a work in progress, and we're absolutely moving in the right direction. So thank you for all the work that you are doing to accommodate our request.
Okay. And then the last slide I have is the, I just summarized the Freeman Webb managed properties, the net operating income, budget to actual, and highlighted some of the, unfortunately, I noticed last night, it was too late, that I just highlighted the negative variances, just to kind of let you know. And then I was kind of like, well, why do we have such positive variances? So I kind of went through and looked at that. got some more information, and I could provide that to you. And I'll be glad to enter that into the information that we have already. The biggest thing on this is obviously, I think everybody's been. I think we've talked about it before in board meetings or committee meetings about 10th and Jefferson. They are the most negative variance for this year, closing out the September 30th year end, due to the March tornado damage for the roof. It caused 21 units to be taken offline that are still offline. This is a HUD insured loan property, so we are dealing with not only Freeman Webb, MDHA, and then Walker Dunlap and HUD. The insurance adjusters are all working together to try to come up with a really good plan to get all the repairs scoped and completed, hopefully in early 2021. So we had not received as of year end, and I didn't have a number that I felt comfortable accruing for receivable at year end, for insurance proceeds that were expected to get for lost rents, and hopefully, and I'm pretty comfortable with. I know it's going to cover all the damage, the repairs for the damage, but as far as lost rents, didn't really have a good number to accrue at year end. So hopefully, in the first quarter of 2021, we'll see some of that money coming back in. But so. Again, Freeman Webb manages the budgets. We've talked about internally loading those budgets into Yardi so that we can report on those monthly with when we report to Affordable Housing Monthly, the budget to actual comparisons monthly and year to date. So right now we just have the Freeman Webb Excel reports that we get monthly that we monitor. So. And with that, that's again the wanted to get the information to you. I know that we need to be consistent, and we'll work on getting a format that works for everybody, that gives you the information that you need without a lot of the detail. But we'll hopefully answer the questions that you have when we talk about things like the neighborhood health center and purchasing property or selling property or continuing on with other LIHTC deals. So that's where I am.
Thank you so much, Melinda. And I certainly appreciated your thought, because I do see good news here as well. And we always love to highlight that too. Thank you so much for that. Are there any questions for Melinda?
I just have a quick question, Melinda. I assume all these properties on the last page have replacement reserves or some sort of reserves to help cover costs for maintenance and repairs. So I'm just confused as to how it's shown on here.
Yes, ma'am. So like Lenore Street, for instance, you're talking about the $50,000 that they have a negative variance. They have a bank loan, so they do have capital repairs. And if you go back to the cash schedule, you'll see where up in unrestricted cash, the Freeman Webb operating cash, and we show that as unrestricted, but that's the money that Freeman Webb holds for the repair. They hold in operations for major replacements or repairs or flooring needs as they have vacancies. So that's the money that's set aside. So they do have funds. Yes. Not all the properties have loans on them. Some of them, I think, let's see, Uptown, Lenore, Nance, and Montague all have bank loans in one way or the other. Now, 10th and Jefferson has the HUD loan, but the other properties are free and clear. So they do have operational reserves set aside for at Freeman Webb. So, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions for Melinda? Okay. Very nice. Thank you so much for the presentation.
Thank you.
So there was one additional agenda item that was brought up as new business. who am I turning that over to?
Buck, are you prepared?
Yeah, I can get started until Buck joins. I think the last piece of new business was a piece of business that I think that was presented a couple of weeks ago. Effectively, Belmont University has identified a piece of property owned by MDHA that they would like to acquire from MDHA to meet some development plans that the university has for the expansion of its campus. And effectively, and again, this is for informational purposes at this point, not for a decision. And neither myself nor the agency has moved this process any place past that we've received a request, and we're simply informing the board of the request. They'd like to buy a property from us that's located, I believe, on Troutland. Is that the right street, Jim?
On Caldwell. The property in question is in Caldwell. It's a neighborhood housing duplex, 2 units. It's in the donut hole property Belmont has purchased.
Mm-hmm.
They've been asking us about this for probably 5 years. Our answer has always been, well, it's public housing. It can't be sold. We can't do anything with it until we complete the RAD conversion last December. And roughly 2 months ago, Dr. Fisher called me. I engaged Aioli to ask him to intersect or interact with the Belmont. And we already own land on Troutland where we've had several opportunities and done a great deal of architectural and development work and have off-the-shelf plans ready to go. It's just been one of those planning events that we couldn't quite line up the timing and the financing for the work on Troutland. It's a good opportunity, maybe not perfect, but it's something that is maturing and at least the conceptual level, nothing material, no agreements, and the board needs to be aware of it. And Buck, you've been working this pretty heavy. Can you add context to my initial statements?
Yes, sir, and all that's accurate as well as what Commissioner Ansari had to say. And as Commissioner Ansari asked a great question of me when we discussed this earlier, is what is our process to deal with disposing of land should it become an opportunity? And so it's a process that we've really not been faced with very often at MDHA, because generally it's been our position to hold land, and when it's been former public housing, we didn't have the opportunity to dispose of any land. So now that we've RAD converted, there are opportunities that will present themselves in the future, especially on our scattered site locations, where we've got 182 sites that are between 1.15 acres and 0.25 acres that are all over town, that you know, through eminent domain or through other development districts or other options sort of get brought into that. And this is the situation we have at Belmont. So I'm going to start sharing a couple slides here.
So Buck, what we should do is we shouldn't talk about the development of Troutland. Let's just focus on what's the request from Belmont.
Yep, I got that. And that's the way I've kind of got this presented. And so just to familiarize the board with 1411 Caldwell Avenue, it is a duplex. As I point this out, it's in this is the parcel. It's 0.2 acres. Currently, there's a 2-bedroom and a 1-bedroom unit there. It was rehabbed about 8 years ago, so it's in great condition. To the left or to the west of this property, this is the beginning of Belmont, which is all to the west of 15th Avenue. And over here where my pointer is, where Caldwell Avenue dumps out into 12th Avenue. So if you're familiar with this area, this is a nice area, but it's also included inside the Belmont Master Development Plan, which was approved by Metro Council in 2005 and revised and updated and reapproved in 2017 for Belmont. So this is why Belmont has been very interested in this piece of land, as they have development plans for that entire block and that entire east side of the Belmont campus. And so in conversation with their real estate folks over the last couple of years, they see the opportunity they would like to take the opportunity to make an offer on this property in the next 3 to 4 months so that they can continue to plan going forward and redevelop and follow through with their additional dorms and additional activity space on that side of Belmont. Any questions about the site specifically? So from a process standpoint,
Are the units, yeah. Are the units occupied?
Yes, they're
People
occupied.
live there.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. People live there. It's a 1-bedroom and a single person, and we have a single parent with another child in the other one.
Okay, thanks.
So from a process standpoint, and this is doing some looking at research and understanding and talking to HUD about how would we dispose of a piece of property that has a RAD use agreement on it, which is it encumbers the property with a RAD use agreement. It means that HUD gets a vote on how we work through and move that contract around. So from top to bottom, from a local perspective, before we brought this to the board, and I'm just going to walk through this, and this is a first draft, initial draft process for offer to purchase property. So this is sort of Buck Bellinger operating in a vacuum on how to go forward with this and talking to HUD. So we would conduct a market appraisal of our property and make sure that someone's offering us a better than market price. We would, at this point, go to the board and talk about whether the board or the Finance and Development Committee is even interested in pursuing this opportunity before we even go forward. Assuming that the board and committee approves the investigative work to go forward, we would go to HUD, multifamily, and discuss this with them and to give them the intent that we were going to amend the neighborhood, in this case, the neighborhood housing contract, the scattered site neighborhood housing contract. We would amend the contract to take 2 units off that property, and their question is going to be, where are you going to put those units? And so we would either add them to another property or we would rebuild in another location. Whenever we do that with HUD, we have to submit to HUD a resident relocation plan, and they have to approve that, Commissioner Bauer. So if a resident has to be moved, there's a whole list of questions that we have to answer along with environmental review and other items. And,
it's complicated.
They have to approve that.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. And then if we are going to do a replacement construction, and that's part of the HUD request, they want to know about the environmental review, and they want to know what the site and neighborhood standards are of that future location, so that we are not moving this family into a concentrated poverty location. So they will have a vote to make sure that environmentally it's a good place, and culturally and socially it's a good place that we're going to move these residents to, and that's part of the resident relocation plan. And then we would continue to gain HUD approval. I'm walking down this from top to bottom. And if we got this, I think the next step is we'd advertise the opportunity and compete this opportunity for a broader audience and make sure that someone else doesn't want to get to bid on this property as well from a disposed property standpoint. Now, this specific case, this property is in a Belmont master plan location approved by council. So we'd have to have further discussion about how we would advertise that or not, because it's Belmont does have an approved first bite at the apple, my words, about purchasing this property, and the board would have to give me some guidance or give us some guidance on that. From the advertising the opportunity, let's assume that it's not Belmont and it's open to everyone. We would identify the buyer usually through a hard bid type response. we would continue to remove the RAD use agreement on the disposed land and amend the HAP contract, meaning we would move the 2 units or move the units on the disposed property to another contract. And then based on, there's all different kinds of directions that this could go, depending on where we would potentially send these 2 families. They could go to another neighborhood housing scattered site. They could go to Casey new construction, or they could go to new construction somewhere else in the city, depending on what our options are. And, you know, as part of, and I'm down here the last 2 bullets, as part of the relocation plan, you always have to present, once HUD approves your plan, and this looks like it's absolutely going to happen, then the family knows this is happening, and then we talk to the families and we present them 3 options. And it's up to them to choose what it is that where they want to go. They can have we usually give them a housing choice voucher option, and we give them a couple options within our portfolio, and they choose. Whenever we've had to ask residents to move. And then we relocate the family in accordance with the approved plan. And whenever we move them, we've got to cover their moving expenses. And under certain circumstances, we've given them transportation stipend to carry them through a period of time if construction's involved, so that they can stay connected and located, maybe not physically, but if the kids need to go to school in a certain part of town, we've given them a transportation stipend to support that. So as a first draft, this is, I believe, we would follow this process in general terms, and after discussing this with our representative at HUD, this would be consistent. And speaking to the representatives at HUD, you know, again, MDHA would be leading the country in this sort of opportunity from a RAD use standpoint, that we would be disposing of certain properties. And so while amending a contract is not a new process, it's a very atrophied process. And for us to do this going in the future, they would have to relearn what that process is. And so, you know, because there's HUD geeks out there, they're excited about the opportunity. So any questions about the Belmont site or about the first draft on this process, or any discussion?
Well, I would say that the process is thorough. It's good. It makes sense to me. I would say, you know, considerable time is going to be spent on the first 4 bullets, what that will look like. And, you know, it's interesting. So you would come up with a resident relocation plan, and that HUD has to approve.
Yep.
And then if it involves replacement construction, that takes you down another rabbit hole.
Yes, ma'am. You read my bullet well on the kind of the flow diagram on the arrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is Paulette, and I was very happy to see that, because before you got down to the bottom bullets, I was going to say what input would the residents who are there have. So I'm glad that they're considered. And the next point relates to, so we take, and though it's a small number, we take 2 affordable housing sites offline. And so, but we're not adding any necessarily, because all of the options seem to be, you know, existing places. So how do we, this is kind of like the point that Emily raised earlier on. And then it's also related to this is another example of why we need to have some kind of well thought out process for disposing of land. Because in both instances, I find it interesting that the potential buyers are the ones who are initiating it. And typically you'd like to see that we would have some kind of overall plan for the lands in the city that we own, that we would either make it available. And if we keep having people come to us without a plan, it's just going to be very, very ad hoc, and it's going to open us to a lot of criticism. So two potential dispositions in one meeting says it's urgent that we begin to look at a policy.
And I think the staff agrees with developing a policy. So in this concept, I would remove amending the HAP contract. For this specific example, we would remove the 2 units from the neighborhood housing HAP contract and add them to the Boscobel Heights contract, which is Casey. The Casey contract is in the HUD vernacular is called the Boscobel Heights contract. So those folks would move to Casey. Now, and I know, Christian, sorry, yeah, I'm gonna break with this guidance real quick. Is that the next?
So hold on.
Okay, I'm not gonna do
Don't go there. Don't go there. Don't go there. Don't go there.
All right, I'll hold back. The horse is trying to break out of the corral.
Yep. Leave him in the stable. So Paulette, I think specifically to answer your question, I think what you're seeing on this piece of paper is where the contractual agreement goes to. Mm-hmm. But I think, remember earlier we said if we got $500,000 through that grant, we could add 4 new units to our inventory. Mm-hmm. That similar thought process would happen here. If we were able to sell the land for, let's call it $500,000, I'm just making it up because it matches the number in the grant. What we would then do is use that $500,000 to construct 4 new units, right? But you would actually amend the contract for the 2 units to go inside the Casey. So I think there's 2 separate processes, a process by which you get back into the HUD contract, and then is what do you do with the money that you just got from Belmont? And the plan would be to add incremental units to our portfolio for affordable housing.
Okay. But that was never articulated before. And, I just think we have to be very, very thoughtful and intentional and not so ad hoc about things.
I don't want to beat this horse too much, but I just want to understand, if I can say it very quickly. But so these units would be removed from the RAD contract. And then if the decision is made to move to Boscobel Heights, then does that change the unit count? Are you going to add 2 additional units, or just going to be integrated into Boscobel Heights?
No, they would add. So in this specific case, we would go from 384 on the neighborhood housing contract to 382, and Boscobel Heights would go from 786 to 788.
Okay, thank you.
And Boscobel Heights is a good fit for 2-bedroom and 1-bedroom addition.
Well, we're coming to a close in terms of our meeting time. Thank you for the presentation. I want to echo Paulette's comment that as we are continuing to see these things emerge, it is beginning to feel that it is a priority for us to take a bigger step back and think about what is MDHA's disposition policy. And so, I think that those considerations, for instance, one that came up today was this is, a part of the envision process. In this instance, it's a part of a master plan. My question is also, as an MDHA board, do we also have other considerations? For instance, I'm pretty sure if this was a predatory financial, payday lending scheme, we wouldn't be having this conversation, right? So what are the parameters that we really want to use to guide ourselves in these kinds of decisions. And so, I asked the staff to go back and start to put some of that together, and Aoli is the director or the development chair. I think that you are well positioned to help guide the staff in some of that thinking, and I'm sure other board members would be happy to help individually, so that we can try to get something put together to help guide these decisions moving forward. So with that, we have a board meeting starting in 3 minutes. So I'd like to call the meeting to close, and we can re-adjourn in 3 minutes for the full board. Thank you, everyone.